Welcome to this edition of Great Books, a lively discussion of a selection from the canon of exceptional literature. Here's your host, Jack Hatfield.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us for the Great Books Show. I'm Jack Hatfield. Our panel meets monthly to discuss great works of classic and modern literature. Today we're discussing Animal Farm by George Orwell. It was written in 1943 and 1944, toward the end of World War II. Many commentators say it was a critical metaphor of Stalin's Russia. In the story, farm animals, they talk in this story, drove off the drunken, incompetent farmer of Manor Farm and changed its name to Animal Farm. They established it as a model community with the slogan, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. 2 pigs, Snowball and Napoleon, established control. But Napoleon then drove off Snowball as a traitor and got complete control. Napoleon gradually changed the community's charter and established a personal dictatorship where the slogan was changed from all animals are equal to some animals are more equal than others. Under Napoleon's rule, the other animals, with the exception of the pigs, were back in the same sorry condition as when the farmer was in control. Napoleon and pigs got all the benefits of the workers' labor while the workers got little. As Napoleon negotiated with the other farmers to sell the farm's products with the intent of keeping the profits, the rest of the animals peeked in the window. They saw no difference between the pigs and the humans. I'd like to ask the first question. At the very first, when they established the utopia, everything was going well, and then it just went downhill. What was the reason that what was wrong with the utopia to cause this downfall?
I could sum it up by quoting Boxer's idea, when Boxer's the workhorse,
Yeah.
you know, almost like the ideal worker, where he says his motto is, Napoleon is always right. The idea of unquestioned authority, so that the leader can do whatever he wants, and he does whatever he uses intimidation, he uses propaganda, so that the leader is meeting his own needs and not representing the people, the animals on the animal farm. So I think that's what went wrong.
Well,
part of it. That's how it started, I think.
It was their willingness to surrender their autonomy to a strong leader, but the reason they did that was because the proletariat, the less intelligent animals, the pigs were the most intelligent. Mm-hmm. They weren't organized enough to have the prosperity that they dreamed of, so they delegated their authority to the pigs. They gave up some of their autonomy willingly.
I think it goes along with what was part of the introduction. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, and that's the power. I think it was the corruption of the power of the pigs in office.
Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts.
And that's what happened. It started off they were going to be a democracy. You know, everybody was going to be get rich. Everybody's going to have an opportunity. How did it end up?
They gave up their power.
But the pigs took it, and Snowball took that power.
Well, it was sort of ceded over to them automatically. I mean, I don't think it's irrelevant that the visionary was a pig. What was his name? The first
Major.
Major.
Yeah.
That the one who set forth the vision that
he saw the dream.
Yeah, that inflamed all the rest of the animals, including the other pigs, was a pig. So I think that was part of it. The other thing is that there's a factor here, and that is that Napoleon had the seeds of corruption right from the beginning. He had the seeds of corruption right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. He was already using the revolution for his own ends. Remember, very, very early on, I think it must have been right after the rebellion, maybe that same day, the cows got milked. The milk. Yes, and he stepped between the milk and everybody else. So the cows have been milked, and then he steps between them. He says, "I'll take care of it. The milk will be attended to." And then when they came back that evening, the milk was gone.
That was the first sign.
That was the first sign.
Yeah.
That was like the first day or like the next day. It was very early on.
What do you think Orwell was trying to say? Because immediately there was a division it was a class structure, because even before Napoleon took control, because it was split into management, who are the pigs were back at the doing graphs and reports for some reason, and they got better treatment. They got more food and everything else, while the workers were out working. So what was he saying, do you think, with saying that very early on that class society was starting to develop?
Well, I think that, but I think also that when they have the revolution, the revolt, and they throw the Farmer Jones out, there's just a very sly line where he says, everyone assumed that, of course, the pigs would make the decisions because they were smarter than everybody else. I think that assumption right there is a real problem. You know, that first of all, the pigs are assuming that and promoting themselves that way, and then the other animals are just like sitting back and letting themselves be.
But the pigs were smarter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I had the sense that was
yeah.
sort of a pre-existing
Yeah.
thing. The people just believed that the animals just believed
Yeah.
that they were smarter.
But then people
because
just went
they
along.
had
Yeah, people did. They just
better
went. The
experience of
people, the animals just went along with that, and they never said, "Well, we should have voting," or we
Well,
should
they
have.
did. Remember? I remember they had voting, but it was only after a while that they did away with the voting.
Well, they
Yes.
had meetings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And voting.
Okay. And they had
They had
I forgot
voting
about
initially.
That.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are all of the methods that Napoleon used to gain control? I came up with, I don't know, 10.
Propaganda.
Propaganda.
Intimidation. The public execution was the thing that just I was like reading it.
I'm going to ask you a question about that.
Okay.
Show
Yeah.
trials. Yeah, the show
Yeah.
trials.
Yeah.
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 What-
Intimidation, propaganda, persuasion.
Promises.
Promises.
Yeah.
Yeah, false promises.
Yeah, a lot
Right.
of false
Yeah.
promises.
Defamation
Yeah.
of Snowball.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, marginalization, yes, creating a scapegoat.
Yeah, and then creating the 7 commandments, but then twisting them around to suit whatever, no animal should sleep in a bed. Oh no, what it really says is no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets.
Sheets.
Right. And we have blankets, and those aren't sheets. We sleep with, and they're very comfortable beds too.
And if you drink
Also-
alcohol, you die.
That's right.
And then they start racing.
And they had
barley.
they had one PR flack, I've forgotten his name, who was
Squealer.
who was an expert in language, and that was part of it because they twisted everything a little bit.
Yeah.
They used music.
Yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah.
Squealer wrote his own song,
That's right. Yeah.
To replace
they used patriotism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beasts of
They
England.
also used distortion of memory. That,
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that was the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which he then followed up in 1984. Which was where they continued to change the past.
yeah.
And they
It
continued
was
to change the
interesting
past.
that the animals were able to work hard and sacrifice a lot of things for the future. They didn't. And there was an expectation that they may not get a payoff during their lives.
Right.
But they were still willing to work hard.
Because of the
for that.
brainwashing.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Because of the brainwashing, like boxers' motto that Napoleon is always right, and I will work harder. These mottos that, check your brain at the door and just do as they tell you.
Yeah.
Well, there was another part though too, and that was, and they said this from pretty early on, and it followed through the whole book. I think they were working for themselves. They were not
Very
slaves.
good.
They
Yeah.
were not slaves.
That's right.
No matter what
Even
happened.
though
And
they had less
even-
food.
Yes, at the end they had less food and worked harder than other animals in England, but they were still working.
Still
And that
working.
was almost at the very end. They
Yeah.
even repeated that again. But at least we're working for ourselves. We're
So-
no longer slaves.
So do you think they really believed that, or do you think that was the propaganda that they were getting from the higher-ups?
Well, I think they
The-
believed
I,
it
believe,
right
I
from
think
the
they believed it
start.
right from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Major's. Wasn't that part of old Major's
Yeah,
thing?
right.
Is that you'll be free, everything will be for us.
But it sure seems like at some point they would have figured out, are we supposed to just think they're not very bright? I mean, it seems like at some point they would have figured out that, gee, we've been working my tail off for how long, and
They
I'm not
did
any better
question it a
off.
couple of times.
Yeah, different people
yeah.
were obviously the donkey, whatever that his name.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
Benjamin was.
It reminded me of the political slogan that politicians use, are you better off now than you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Right, and they all should have said, no, I'm not. Yeah.
Plus, as things got more and more outrageous, as the deviations from the original principles of the revolution got more and more outrageous, the intimidation got worse and worse. There were more killings. The dogs were always present. I mean, several times they said that the animals, even the dumber ones, would have said something, except that the dogs were there, and then the sheep start bleeding. 2 legs good, 4 legs good, 2 legs better, and then debate ended. It kind of ended like
once they
Yeah.
had the 7 commandments and the song that they created, and they were Snowball, I think, and Napoleon had to go out and sell the idea to the troops. Do you remember that? I thought of the Federalist Papers.
Oh, this whole thing was just very applicable to nowadays.
Well, you know, and
The Federalist Papers?
Yeah, they had to go out and sell the Constitution.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I missed it. What were Napoleon and Snowball trying to sell?
And Snowball had to go out to the rest of the animals and sell them the idea of the 7 Commandments. It was good for them. Okay.
And the song.
And the beasts of the England.
Patriotism, I guess.
All
I
the
would call it.
concepts. You know, you got to hate anything that stands up on two. Like they had to sell the concept.
Sure.
That was the point.
Except that Major came up with Beasts of England.
Yeah.
Major came up with Beasts of England.
Right, but
he inflamed them. I mean, that's what happened. They exploited Major's vision.
Yeah.
They gradually they gradually exploited. I mean, the vision wasn't a bad vision in some ways, but
and another thing that Napoleon was very intelligent about was he said the education of the children was utmost important, and so he started indoctrinating them very early on. So that was a very
And I love how he takes the 9 dogs, the newborn baby dogs from their mothers, and says, "I'll take care of them." And he raises.
And that was early on too.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was very early.
He was projecting forward really fairly far. I mean, this guy,
exactly.
this guy this big,
raises his little army of thugs or whatever. What was that?
Now this is not to saying this is applicable to anything present, but one of the things he did when they got into a campaign really between Snowball and Napoleon, that it said that Napoleon didn't come up with any ideas of his own. Right. All he did was poo-poo Snowball's ideas,
especially the windmill.
Yeah, and so and then after Snowball left, he claimed all of
the good ideas. Claimed it as his.
And then as time went on, he said it was never Snowball's idea to begin with.
Yeah, right.
He was just pretending.
Yes.
Lisa, I think you brought it up. Why do you think the animals, and there was quite a few of them that gave false confessions, knowing that they were going to be executed? Has anyone got any idea?
That to me was the only flaw in this book.
I think
because there was absolutely nothing leading up to it, nothing to explain it, and afterwards no justification of it. It just happened.
Don't you think it was fair? Don't you think it was just torture, just like they do in the
But they weren't.
But you would have thought the animals would have known if other animals were being tortured. I mean, they weren't being taken away into a prison in Red Square.
Right.
I mean, everybody was there.
I don't think it mentioned torture.
No.
They just came up
and
lied and were executed. And they knew they were going to be executed for that. It was just.
I thought they were intimidated or tortured or something.
I couldn't figure that out. I agree with you, Jack. That part I couldn't figure out at all. Yeah, exactly. Especially since you saw the animals who had done it just before you had their throats ripped out.
Right.
You know,
I guess I just assumed that they were, intimidated in some way. But
the different characters were, I thought, interesting and maybe represent groups. There was Molly. Remember, she was the
vain horse, the vain mare.
All she cared about was ribbons for her hair.
Sugar and ribbons for her hair.
There was Boxer, who was the worker, but they were all workers, but he was...
Oh, no, he was supreme.
He was a supreme. Yeah, he was the real good citizen.
The workhorse,
the workhorse.
Very good.
I was trying to think of some other characters that are...
was Squealer the propaganda?
Benjamin the donkey.
Benjamin the donkey. Oh, I love him. Well, donkeys live a long time, kind of implying that, this is happening now and it's going to change. And I've seen a lot of changes in my life, and I'm skeptical as I thought.
And the
I loved him.
sheep were just like sheep. They just.
Why do you think Benjamin? Obviously, he was intelligent, and I thought he understood what was going on, but he never spoke out. Is that?
I don't know the explanation, but I wonder. He to me seemed like an ambivalent character. I couldn't figure out how Orwell felt about him, because you're right. He saw more clearly than anybody else what was going on, but his philosophy was that life never changes much. It doesn't ever get much better. It doesn't ever get much worse.
Yeah.
So why try to change anything? Which I can't believe Orwell really felt either. So I couldn't quite figure him out.
I was trying.
But at the end, when push came to shove, and he had to do something to try to save Boxer, he did, but it was pointless at that point.
He and Clover both. I know that was the little spot of compassion in the story was that when Boxer's dying, Clover is trying to, they're trying to keep the flies off him and trying to comfort him as he's dying, and
I just had a thought about Benjamin. Marx divided the world between people who want to change it and people who want to explain it and accept it. And
Benjamin's an explainer.
Benjamin was the explainer.
Yeah.
Life is basically this way. No matter what happens, it's always going to fall back to this.
What he said at some point, this
He
is
was
how
the
it's always been, it's how it's always going to be.
It's always going to be, and it is that way. And
At the beginning of the story, I thought that the animals were really going to take over and show the humans, the other farmers, how to really do it, okay? I never expected the animals to end up the way they did. I don't know.
Well, that's what happens to utopias in general.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You believe that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
and you're willing to
when it
sacrifice
starts
for the future.
turning the other way, I was a little disappointed.
Oh, poor Bob.
It wasn't going to have a Hollywood ending.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So he's a good writer that he was able to lead you along, and then you didn't.
That's the way I felt about it.
Your expectations were not. Yeah, that's good. I'm just thinking of all the. I wonder if Orwell's making a comment about all the workers who just say, I'm going to go along with this, I'm going to work my hardest, I'm going to work harder and harder, and someday it'll all work out. I wonder if he's saying that maybe that's not the way to look at things, that you shouldn't follow along and just trust that the system is going to give you a better life. I think he is saying that, they really weren't very smart to do that, you should be more critical or whatever.
Was there a point where the workers had no power at all?
Did they ever, other than...
They never did.
Did they ever have any
Were
real...
they switched, you mean?
Or switch, or they just never had the power?
They just never did?
Well,
within their own
community. There was
community.
the stasis before Napoleon took power, and then he just ran with it because things weren't getting done, and the pigs jumped into the vacuum, and they said, this is the way it's going to be. So it went from ground zero just... to totalitarianism.
David, you said things weren't getting done? You don't think the animals were working hard and getting fruits of their labor?
before the pigs organized everything.
Yeah. As example,
at the very beginning,
the cows didn't
weren't
get
getting
milk.
milk.
Yeah.
This is very early on. This is on Sundays. He's going through their schedule after the rebellion. On Sundays they had the meeting, and it says here. They had a general assembly, which is known as the meeting. Here the work of the coming week was planned out and resolutions were put forward and debated. It was always the pigs who put forward the resolutions. They were the only ones who basically were initiating things. The other animals understood how to vote, but they could never think of any resolutions of their own. And then Snowball and Napoleon were by far the most active in the debates. So they were able to vote, so they did have power, but the direction was put forward by the pigs always, right from the very beginning.
The pigs are the ones making all the decisions. I mean, none of the rest of them
were voting in a one-party system. They were voting. Here's your choice. We do this or nothing. And I vote for this.
But then Snowball was always the opposite.
He was kicked out.
Yeah, ultimately he was. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So I think they had power, but it was only formal. I mean, it wasn't real.
Formal.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't real power. So
No.
it's like the workers wasn't really their fault.
Yeah.
Even though.
Yeah.
Okay. There was an interesting character, Moses, who was the raven.
The preacher.
The preacher.
Religion. Yeah.
He was came
the
in.
opiate of the people.
Yes.
They hated him. They detested him. They said that everything that he said was wrong, but they let him stay around. I wonder why.
Well, they didn't say everything, not the pigs. I mean, they rewarded them. He got, well, first of all, to explain that he had this concept called Sugar Candy Mountain.
Mountain.
It's like heaven.
Where pie in the sky, when, you die.
Yeah.
And the pigs gave him extra rations, beer rations every day.
Right.
So they were rewarding him, and this was to their advantage. So
But then he flew away.
He took
and
away.
Then he came back, and after he came back, they didn't say they were rewarding. What they said was they were telling people that they didn't. They were telling the other animals that it was clear that what he was saying was false. But they didn't do anything to expel him. They kept him around.
He got his retirement plan.
He got his retirement plan, and he kept the animals who believed him were kept more docile.
Yeah.
Sure. If you take comfort from this, God bless you.
Yeah.
Why someone mentioned this earlier, at the end, that there's a quote, and this is a why. Why do the animals not give up hope and never lost their honor and privilege of being members of Animal Farm? Even though that they didn't get enough food, the conditions were equal to or as bad as when the drunken, incompetent farmer...
Or worse.
Or
Who
worse.
knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Why do you think they did that? What's...
A promise. They look forward.
I don't think there was a promise at all by then.
They look forward, though, to the Animal Farm being a very lively, independent place.
It could be after their lifetime. They acknowledged that the good time could come after their natural lifetime. So there was something to look forward to.
It's like the immigrants in this country that worked.
The perfect communism.
Yeah, the immigrant who works in this country in a terrible job in the hope that his kid is going to get to go to college someday.
The American dream.
Yeah, but I still think that Orwell is saying that that's not really a good way to look at things. That you can't be that docile and that passive, and that just. I think he's saying that just working really hard is not enough. You have to be critical of the authorities. Although the people that were critical, was it a bunch of hens that tried to have a revolution? They all got. So yeah.
Is there
because they wanted to take more eggs, wasn't it? Wasn't that the precipitant for that?
Yeah. Right.
Is Orwell defining a good political system, or is this just kind of power corrupts and it's going to happen organically no matter what happens?
Is it inevitable?
Right.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, exactly. Is it
inevitable?
No.
This was. I read this a long time ago. Were you just reading this for the first time, Bob?
Oh no, second time.
Second time.
I read it.
And I read it I read it a long time ago, and and I guess the second time, this time I thought, the thing about this is it's really it's kind of dated. I mean, this in some ways is dated because this is very specifically anti-Soviet, and I think that. And although you guys don't have the preface, I mean, in the preface he pretty much acknowledges that, and especially in the Ukrainian preface, that this was all directed against the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union was not real socialism. So I think that yes, the Soviet Union, that system is corrupt, but I don't know that he really thinks that it's. He was a socialist from way back. Yeah. I don't think he thinks that it's inevitable that this is going to happen, but it happened in the Soviet Union.
I don't think it was dated, Joe.
I don't either.
I think it's about revolution, okay, and what the expectations are for revolution, and it also sent the message that this revolution didn't work.
Right.
Well, socialism, I think he thinks needs to be controlled by, a strong government and not by, pigs.
They didn't say that.
A cult of personality.
Well, no, but it's an alternative to letting nature take its course, and that's what was happening. The weeds started to take over the farm.
There's no checks or balances in their system at all.
No checks and balances.
And I think he's just describing what could happen with any, what I'll call a totalitarian regime. Any regime that starts with,
disagree both with you and Joe. I don't think it's dated, and I don't think it's limited just to a totalitarian system. I think the United States right now, there's elements of this throughout. And it can be equitable to where we are right now with an election tomorrow.
All the techniques that they used, changing the vision.
Changing people's memories. That's what got me the worst.
Yeah, changing history.
You're not remembering that quite right.
History.
Yeah.
And then they had something to back it up. They went to the wall, and there it was, which kept changing.
Whitewash.
Yeah.
So what's your take away from this?
This was really frightening for me to read. Pigs rule.
Yeah, don't let the pigs rule.
I kept, when they were using pigs, I kept thinking of how back in the 60s, the people referred to the cops as pigs. And there was an editorial where I grew up in Detroit where they were talking about the riots in Chicago. And this one, I said, the kids say that the cops are acting like pigs and the kids are right. When Daley and and I'm just thinking they were kind of acting like that was a dictatorship Daley basically had, and so I think I think that using pigs was the perfect choice for the dictators, because maybe they're smarter, but they're greedy and.
What? Yeah, this was a little bit before that. So.
Yeah, it just struck me. Maybe it's not relevant, but yeah.
I thought it was so well written. I mean, Orwell is such a good writer.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed reading it. But as you say, you disagree, but I felt that it was pretty, that the lessons to be drawn from it, at least the more powerful lessons, you know, especially the idea of something kind of degenerating almost imperceptibly, and people, animals, kind of following it like sheep. That part of it, the power of it, I was kind of lost on me because I felt like it was just toward a very specific.
As far as its relevance to today, when I was thinking about coming here tonight, I thought if we had a soundtrack for this, we could play in the background "The Who Won't Get Fooled Again."
Yeah,
I was thinking
the new boss,
yes, same as the old boss. I kept thinking the same thing.
Party on the left side is now the party on the right side.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the party on.
Joe, what's your take on it?
Bob.
Or Bob. I've only known you for 25 years.
Yeah, I didn't think it was dated at all. I thought it was about revolution and any dictatorship. And, you know, when you think about the propaganda, how they convinced the masses of the animals, you know, in today's public relations, all they do is spin ideas.
Yeah,
And
right,
it's the same, you know, we call it spinning today.
Take it and
but
tweak it a little.
That's what Squealer was doing,
Yes.
all
Yeah.
of the propaganda.
He was a spin doctor,
He
right?
was the spin doctor.
Sure.
Yeah. So I thought there was a lot of things that were relevant to today. And I really enjoyed his writing. Oh my gosh, it was really a pleasure to read.
It was.
Yeah, it's very simple style, like a parable almost.
And
yeah.
a hack could have taken the story, writing the same sort of thing, and just been very obvious and awkward. You know, it's he's trying to you know, but he just did it just for
It could have been done very heavy-handedly.
so, Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was
I did too.
it was a great read. So, and it was something that I think I was first exposed to it as a kid.
Really?
You
It was
know,
high
as a
school, I think.
I think the first
that
time
right?
was a cartoon.
Like
The cartoon, the movie. There's a movie.
Is there a movie?
That's,
Yeah,
yeah, there's
yeah,
a movie from
yeah.
the 50s, I think, or so.
Yeah.
No
60s.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I think
Yes.
they just did a play version of this in Chicago.
yeah, it was.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I read
Just
an
in the
article.
last several weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
Were they
there.
anim-
reviewed
were
it.
they-
Were they
It's at the
dressed in
Goodman.
animal
Yeah.
costumes?
Yeah,
or-
sort
It's
of.
at the good.
Yeah.
The Goodman? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
No. Good.
So, I thank you all out there. I hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next time when we discuss another great book. As Aristotle said, the best way to learn is to get together in small groups and discuss great ideas. And I think this is a great idea, and we're a small group. So thanks for watching Great Books.